presenting the concept document towards 1 million or more endorsements for the Climate Justice Charter. I've given you all the document. Does anyone not have it? Okay, so the objectives of this document and of the activities is to firstly engage individuals, communities and organizations with the Charter in order to create awareness about climate change and the alternatives. To develop tools to ensure effective communication about the Charter and the ideas presented in it. To obtain endorsements from individuals and organizations for the Charter. To build local climate justice charter alliances and networks. And to lay the groundwork for the National Day of Action in your local area for October 16, 2020. So in this document we've put together a few proposals for how we can go about meeting these objectives. So as I go through it, please reflect on them and think about what's missing, what we could add, what won't quite work, because at the end we're going to go into these ideas and ask a few questions and get your input for how best to obtain these objectives. So the main activity will be around getting endorsements and then working on what kind of tools we need to make the Charter more accessible. So the Charter will be finalized in May. After this, we will have until the end of September to engage communities with the Charter using various methods to inform people about the Charter and to get endorsements. In this context, we must be mindful of COVID-19. The challenge of COVID-19 injustices are also challenges for climate justice. COVID-19 was declared a national disaster, and it is a dress rehearsal for how we need to deal with the worsening climate crisis. The Climate Justice Charter is preparing us, our communities, our workplaces, and the state for what will threaten everything. So we've got some proposals about tools. So through the input we realized that we need to translate the Charter. Depending on budget and whether people are willing to translate it for free, we'll see how many languages we can get that into and then get that out there. We want to create a visual of the Charter for children. So a few pictures about the principles, what are the alternatives, just in a very easily accessible version for children. We also want to do some audio clips of the Charter in different languages. So the Charter is a very short document. The final version will be a lot shorter. So it won't take very long to read through the Charter, and then this will also be in different languages. And then a 1 or 2 page visual again of the Charter and the alternatives that are presented in it. If you have any more, please write your ideas down now and then we'll discuss it later. Okay, so then our strategy for endorsements. So we are looking for 2 types of endorsements, individual endorsements and organizational endorsements. And as you would have seen by the title, we're looking for more than 1 million. So it's quite a task that we have before us. There's a few methods that we want to use to obtain these endorsements. So firstly, for individuals, online endorsements. So the main platform this would be the main platform for getting endorsements. And I don't know if you're familiar with change.org or Mandla Mobi. You get sent a link in your email or on WhatsApp, you click on it, you read up what it's about, and then you can sign on. So it's kind of like signing on to a petition online. So we are thinking of using a similar platform to put the Charter on, put the demands, put everything there, and then people can sign on. And then we will, at the end of it, get a list of who signed on. You can see a count in real time of how many people have signed on. So we think that's quite a simple and easy to use version, and also for individuals and also for sharing. It's quite handy. So I was looking at the Amandla Mobi website, and there's a few details that they would need for the Charter to create your own petition. So what is the title? What do you want them to do? So who are you targeting and what do you want them to do? So in this instance it would be Parliament, and we would want them to adopt the Charter. And why is this important? And then there's various categories, and we could probably, like, is it environmental justice, social, all these things, we could probably select all of them. And then where is this? So this is specific to South Africa. So other ways we can get the Charter out and to get endorsements is through community workshops. Now again, we need to rethink this in the light of COVID-19. But here we can have an online petition form. So at the end of the document there's a sample of an online form. So if you're going to a rural community and not everyone has a smartphone and can access the link, you can take this form with you and get people to sign, and then when you go home or you go to the office, you can sign on for everyone, put all their details in. So that's one idea. Where was I? Door-to-door visits, also depending on the state of the virus. Engaging individuals in our workplaces, engaging prominent South Africans, if we know them, any face-to-face engagements in common public spaces. Again, we have to rethink all of this. And then a social media strategy. So how can we effectively use WhatsApp groups, Twitter and Facebook to generate interest and encourage people to sign on. And then Amandla Moby also provides an option for SMS blasts. So that costs a bit, but they'll send out SMS to their networks. Remember how many?
I think it's 20,000.
20,000 people on their list that this SMS blast can go to if we are willing to pay. And then how do we approach organizations? So again, face-to-face organizations with face-to-face engagements with organizations. So COPAC would, for example, set up a meeting with organizations that we are aware of, tell them about the charter and ask them to consider endorsing it, or just an email strategy, which might be more practical now. And there's also a draft letter in the back of this document, a sample letter of what we can send to organizations, asking them to sign on. Alright, so that's the activity, and then we just also put a few roles of activists in the climate justice charter space, and then the different organizations, and also individuals. So here we're saying that the role of individual activists should be to obtain endorsements from friends, family and colleagues, and we could make this into a little competition, see how many endorsements you can get, but also have a target. So what is the target? Here we've just put a figure of 1,000, but I don't know, maybe we could aim for more per activist. And then what is the role of the CJ Charter network organizations? So here again, host community assemblies, workshops, identify organizations in their ambit, send the endorsement letter, and get endorsements. And here again, we can have organizations setting targets for themselves of how many organizations they will reach out to endorse the charter. Share social media posts frequently, build local climate justice charter alliances or networks, and use all of this mobilization. So it's not just about please endorse this charter and goodbye, but it's about we are taking this charter to Parliament. Do you want to work with us in the run-up to that? So use this mobilization to lay the basis for the October 16th National Day of Action, Climate Justice Action. And then what is the role of COPAC? So we will create the online platform, we'll draft the letter, which we've already done, and then we will send the SMS blasts. And I haven't put it in here, but also create the social media post and encourage others to share. Alright, that was it. So we've just got a few questions to discuss this document. So I'll just go through all of them. What is missing from this concept? How else can we enhance engagement with individual citizens in communities and workspaces? Second question, how else can we enhance engagement with organizations in order to obtain endorsements? And then the third question, who else should we target? So because we are a small group, we could probably just discuss it in the setting, no need to break up into smaller groups. So I think we'll just start with question 1. Firstly, before we get there, any questions about the concept?
So I think the real question for me is, what's the objective of the campaign? Is it to get Parliament to adopt this in terms of what was the section of the Constitution?
234.
Or is the objective to get 1 million people to read it and engage with it and understand it and support it? And I don't think those two things are the same. I mean, if the objective is to get 1 million endorsements so that you can say to Parliament, this has the support of 1 million people, and you must adopt it as Parliament, I think then the emphasis is on getting 1 million signatures. If you remember the UDF 1 million signature campaign, then the focus becomes how many people can you get to sign this, rather than what do they understand.
And if they can't sign, then put a cross.
Also, if you seriously want Parliament to adopt it, if that is the objective, then you have to relook at the Charter. What is it saying? Is it something that our Parliament would adopt? I mean, you know, there are things in it which I don't think our Parliament would adopt. So, you know what I mean? So you have to think about the objective in terms of both the content of the Charter and in terms of how the campaign is organised. Which is not to say, I mean, the Charter itself is great, with a bit of simplification, but we're not going through the Charter at this point, eh? I mean, is there a place in this workshop to actually look at the Charter?
Well, we were expecting feedback in the last session because
I'm a bit out of this because I wasn't
yeah.
the delegate to the last meeting.
Yes.
So.
And
But I don't know, it's like a fait accompli.
your delegate should have reported to you
Yeah.
and shared the resource, and you guys should have sent us feedback.
But I think
Yeah.
what I suggest is give Janet a chance in the sense that it's not a big document.
Yeah.
Through the space of lunch or whatever, she can just
Yeah.
go to it, and probably for her to critique it, that means she must have seen, because she's saying certain things there in the document but not past master. So that means there's certain section of the document she has seen. So it's just to say, to look at it thoroughly, and then maybe let's come to open it. Because yes, you're right in the sense that there are certain things already, as I was explaining to this, that certain things in the document, people that we sat with the talk, I said, this won't go, because if you are saying jobs, and people think jobs, and jobs means for them is electricity, and electricity means coal, we need to just justify. But I like the idea that if we give people a chance to understand the concept, then basically we plant the seed, then they run with it. Because if we just say let's sign, then constantly we have to be there and remind people what we are signing for. But if we, for instance, if we go to a society and get one person, because now we can't go to masses, get one person, explain to that person, and that person goes to his community with trust him because they know that he might not have the COVID virus or so. He might be the one explaining within his community because he's the one that you explain to. That's how I think we should work.
Okay. Mitchell, then Bish, then Zelda.
That just might be a silly question, but in the US, for example, petitions have a certain threshold that at that threshold they need a governmental response. Do we have such thing in South Africa?
No.
Anyone aware of it? No, we don't.
No.
Yeah, and then to just back up what I think was just said over there, I think it is a very good idea is to just expand the circle of knowledgeable people who can explain this thing. In a sense, it is the success of religions, is that they have a document and then they have preachers. People capable of going out and winning people over to a cause. And we should not underestimate the power of a group of 60 people even capable of doing that. Because then you can always keep your meeting sizes under the governmental awareness level, and you can spread quite easily at a grassroots level if you just have a good understanding of what it is. Sorry.
So first and foremost, we envisage the Charter to be an education tool, a popular education tool. There's a big gap in South Africa around climate awareness. I mean, many polls find this, and so on and so on. This is despite the drought and all the activism, etc. So we really wanted to affirm, if you like, a people's response to the climate crisis, a total systemic response. And so for us, the endorsement process is not a tick box exercise, and that's why we're planning a whole set of tools to accompany that. So we can engender conversation in face-to-face engagements, in households, in communities, etc. And that's why language translation, visual materials, comic book style stuff, there's going to be a whole lot of resource as per this proposal to enable that. So we want to use this intervention to shift consciousness as much as possible and to get people to recognize that there are solutions they can own that are being fought for, and they can also be part of that struggle. The second thing is, we want to call the bluff of the carbon ruling class in this country. Okay, we don't have any expectation that the Parliament is going to adopt this thing. Okay, but it's calling their bluff. It's making enough noise in society. It is building alliances from below. It is getting a national debate going. It's getting awareness raised, etc. And to take all of that noise to Parliament and to demand that it be adopted. Of course, if we're going to get into a legalistic discussion about, what the Constitution will allow and enable, etc., I'm not sure that that's the best conversation to have. Okay, I think it'll be a waste of our time. This is an aspirational document. It's about what we desire, what we want for a different kind of society in the context of the climate crisis. The government is very, very far from this. The government's going in the opposite direction in terms of its commitment to reproducing carbon capitalism in this country. But at least what we are doing is making that breakthrough, that big leap into the mainstream. If they do not adopt it, we are talking to the legal resources, and by the way, we invited them to come, and again, the COVID thing has disrupted our conversation to an extent. But our conversations with the Legal Resources Center is how do we interdict Parliament if they do not entertain it as per the Constitution. But the idea there again would be to